Welcome back to Hudson Appliance for another episode of Wicked Good Food. I'm your host, Matt Williams, and today we're going to do some Asian-inspired things. My wife and I love to go get Chinese food all the time. I actually proposed to my wife in a fortune cookie. That's another story for another time. But we were having it the other night. I thought this would be a great idea for a show. So we're going to make tonight a beef and broccoli. We're going to make a Peking ravioli, and we're also going to make a vegetable lo mein. First thing we're going to start with is our Peking ravioli, which are going to have some cabbage in it. We're going to use this. This is a Savoy cabbage. Cabbage tend to have an awful lot of moisture in them. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut this and then salt it and let it sit for a while. And then we're going to squeeze out this moisture so that our filling doesn't end up being very watery. So I'm just going to take this, turn it on its side now that I've cut it. I just want to slice it pretty thinly. And I'm looking for about a cup and a half or so, which I think we're there. And so now I'm going to take this and just put some of it right into this bowl, add a little bit of salt, put some more in, add a little more salt, we'll get the rest of it in there. And we'll salt that. Then we're just going to let this hang out for a while. So I'm going to stick this back here and out of the way. The next thing I want to work on is our beef and broccoli. We're going to actually take our beef and marinate it. So I want to get that done first. What we have here is some top round. It's not a very expensive piece of meat. It's not a very tender piece of meat. This was actually sold at the supermarket as something that you would use as a steak, but I wouldn't use this as a steak, but it's going to be awesome when we slice it nice and thin. So I'm going to take my knife and just go through. And I want to slice it pretty thin. They can be long pieces if you'd like. If you don't want them quite that long, you can make them a little shorter. Depending on your piece and depending the way the grain's running in the meat, if you can cut it across the grain, you're going to get it much more tender. So we can go at a bias if we want to, like this, and get a lot wider pieces if you happen to start with a pre-cut piece. It doesn't really matter. We just want them to be relatively small so they're nice and tender. Beautiful. Now this piece here, I just stuck my knife through it. I could feel some sort of tendon or something. We'll get that out of the way. We're not going to use that little piece. We could trim it up. We could throw that into beef stew. We could throw that into a stock. There's a lot of uses for it. But we're not going to use it for what we're doing. You know, this same sort of steak just like this would make great steak sandwiches as well. All right, good. That can go out of the way. Then this is going to go right into our bowl here. And so I need to wash my hands. I'm going to wash my hands real quick. We'll come back and get this marinating. All right, I cleaned up my hands. I got rid of that raw beef cutting board we had because I don't want to cross-contaminate anything. I'm going to add a little bit of soy sauce to this. This is the lower sodium soy sauce, just enough to kind of coat it a bit. Use my tongs to just toss it around a little bit. And this is just going to help give our finished dish a little bit more flavor. And we're done with that. We'll move that out of the way. Now for our Peking raviolis, we're actually going to make the dough for that. So the dough is a very, very simple dough, and we're going to make it here in just a moment. And what I have here is about a little more than a cup of flour, regular all-purpose flour. And here I have half that amount of water. So I just want to bring this water to a boil, which should be just a few seconds on this induction cooktop here. But that's it. We're just going to mix 2 parts flour with 1 part boiling water. And then we mix that together and we're going to make a dough. It's going to go into our Peking ravioli. So let that just go for a moment. And then what I have here, while we're waiting, are our noodles. So now these are not an Asian noodle. This is a totally Italian noodle. This is linguine. You can use Asian noodles if you want. You can substitute an Italian pasta. You can substitute pasta. They're all a noodle. Usually the lo mein noodles are round. They're about 1/4 of an inch thick. And it's a wheat noodle, but it's made with some egg in it. We're going to use this linguine. It'll work fine. You can use spaghetti. You can use whatever you want, really. All right, our water's at a boil here. So I'm going to shut it off. And I want to pour this. I'm going to make a little well right in the middle here. And just pour the water in. I'm just going to start to mix this together. And I didn't add quite all the water because I put a little extra water in thinking that some might evaporate as we were boiling it, but it boiled so fast not much did. So I'm going to add a little bit more water. Beautiful. Now check this out. How's that for an incredibly fast, simple dough? So move this out of the way. I'll form this together a little bit better with my hands. Now it feels as if I have a little bit too much water in there, so I'm going to add a little bit of flour right here to my board just so I have some to work with. Dust the top of it, bottom of it a bit. Now what I'm going to look for is I want about a tablespoon or so size of this dough. So I'm going to take my cleaver here and just cut it off in little bits. And that's enough for what we're going to do, and I'll just reserve this because we can use this later. And now I'm going to make these into a little ball. We're just going to help it to make it into a circle. Now these Peking ravioli are essentially a pot sticker, but here in the Northeast, here in Boston in particular, we call them Peking ravioli, and that's because of an Asian restaurateur named Joyce Chen, who had a restaurant in Boston in a pretty heavily Italian neighborhood, and she wanted to sell these pot stickers that she made. So she called them Peking ravioli, ravioli being a name that the Italians in the neighborhood knew. But it's basically a pot sticker. There's lots of different types of pot stickers. These tend to have a little bit thicker skin on them. So now what I'm going to do is just take and just push down on this a bit with the palm of my hand and use a rolling pin here. We get a little more flour on there. And I just want to roll it out to make a little dumpling wrapper. Whoops, a little more flour there. Just like that. Very quick and easy. Not quite round, but quick and easy. So I'm going to keep rolling these out. I want to get a dozen or so for what we're going to make. So we'll take a little break while I do that. We'll get back, make our filling, and actually get to stuffing these. So I finished rolling all these out. They're not pretty, they're not perfect circles. That's all right, I'm not a professional at this. They're still gonna taste great. I just have a damp cloth here. I'm gonna put over the top of them until we're ready to use them. And put it back here. It's gonna help to keep them from drying out, which is really important. So now we're gonna move on to the filling. So for the filling, I have ground pork. That's about half a pound, a little more than half a pound probably. We've got our cabbage here, which has been soaking. You can see it's kind of gotten wet. So I'm going to take and squeeze, and you can see some of the liquid that squeezes out of there. And I want to get a good amount of it out. I'll do a little bit more cabbage. I like them to be relatively porky, so I'm going to leave some of this cabbage out. There. Then we're going to add a little bit of scallion, so I'm just going to take some of these scallions here, clean off the ends here, and just slice real thin some scallions. And this is one of those fillings, you can do anything you want with it. You know, if you don't like scallions, don't put them in there. If you like a lot of scallions, use a lot of them. We're also going to add some garlic and some ginger. So I have a clove of garlic here that I cut the end off. I'm just going to give it a little tap to loosen the skin on the outside. Remove that and give it a smash, just like so. That can go, I'll give that a little. That can go right in. Then I've got some ginger here, and the easiest way to peel ginger is with a spoon, believe it or not. So I'm just going to take this spoon. This is a monster spoon, but it's what I have here. I'm just going to scrape the peel right off of it. And if there's a little nub that's in your way, you can pop the little nub off. And we don't need a ton of ginger here. So I'm just going to peel what I think we need. I'll move this out of the way. Then I'll cut off that little nub that we're going to use for this. And then same thing, give that a good smash. And go through and give this a quick chop. All right, and then we'll use we'll use it all, why not, right? Who's gonna stop us? Then I'm gonna add a little molasses for sweetness. It's kind of like dark soy sauce or sweet soy sauce, which is a really cool Asian product. We're going to add some soy sauce, and this is the light soy sauce, or lower in sodium soy sauce. Some sesame oil. And be careful with sesame oil, it's pretty strong stuff. A little bit of fresh black pepper. And that's it, that's our filling. So I'm going to take this and just mix it together well, just to combine all of these ingredients. So this is something that we're going to cook from raw. This isn't the kind of thing where we cook the filling beforehand. So it's important that we cook our filling all the way through, and I'll show you how we're going to cook it in a couple moments here. Oh, it smells awesome. Now, if you want to make sure it tastes right, if you haven't done this before, you're not sure about the exact proportions, take a little bit, after you get it all mixed together, take a little bit and just cook it on the saute pan real quick. Don't brown it too much because that'll give you kind of a false impression of what it's going to taste like, but just cook it so that you can taste it. If you're one of those people that likes to eat raw pork, then go ahead and taste it now, but I'm not that guy. But I've definitely worked with some chefs who didn't care what it was. They would just take a spoonful, take a big bite. All right, that's good, or hey, that needs more salt. All right, good, that's mixed well enough. I'm just gonna open us up a little bit of room. Grab our wrappers again. And we'll go ahead and start. So we're gonna take one of these wrappers, all right? Now, the biggest mistake you can make is putting too much filling in, all right? You don't wanna do any more than a tablespoon or so of filling. I'm gonna put it right in the middle. And then I'm gonna take and fold it over on itself. And then I'm gonna take and fold and start making little pinches on the top of it. And just pinching the top of it shut, just to make a little design in there. And as you do them, you'll get better at them, because that one doesn't look great. So let's do another one here. But if you do too much filling, they'll explode on you, or you just don't have enough in there to seal. So it might be a little too much. So once again, I'm going to fold it over. I'll do it towards you this time. Kind of seal it, and then just taking that corner and pinching it over. And you're just crimping it back on itself, just to make a little design. And this is going to help to hold the stuffing in when we're all done. So I'm going to take and I'm going to do a few more of these at least. We'll get these ready to go, and I'll show you how we're going to cook these, and we'll move on to our lo mein. All right, so I finished getting these rolled out, or getting them folded up. I did the best I could. I apparently don't remember how to do them as well as I thought, but that's all right. They hold together just fine, and they're gonna taste awesome. I have a damp rag here. I'm gonna cover them up just to keep them moist until we're ready to cook them. Now it's time to start working on our other vegetables. So I have here some broccoli. Whenever you shop for broccoli, you should pick it up and feel it. It should feel heavy for its weight. This is gonna be for our beef and broccoli. I wanna keep a lot of the stem on. So to trim this, I'm just gonna start right in the bottom and trim, leaving hunks of stem on there. It gives you a longer piece of broccoli as well. Now if you get a full head of broccoli, this one's been trimmed by whoever the produce guy was. Then you can get them to be a little longer, but that's good. Beautiful. All right. So I like to leave the pieces of broccoli pretty big. If you want to make them a little smaller, go through, make them smaller, make them however you like them. I have some water here. I'm going to wait for it to come to a boil. Then we're going to boil our broccoli just to par cook it, so that when we put it in with the sauce, we don't have to wait for the beef to overcook by the time the broccoli is all done. Now we're going to work on some of our vegetables for our lo mein. We're going to use carrots. So I'm just going to peel a carrot here. And then for this, I'm going to take the carrot and I'm going to cut it into relatively long pieces and cut each one of these in half. So I'm cutting it in quarters the long way. Then I'm going to take my knife or my cleaver here and then cut it on a pretty strong bias to get small pieces. Now, depending on the vegetable you use, you might want different sizes. Carrots are really dense. They take a while to cook, so I want them to be a little smaller so that all my veg are done at the same time. All right, that's good for carrots. We're going to put a little onion in, so I have half of an onion here. Go ahead and pull the peel off of it. And then once again, whatever you want with the onions. I'm going to dice these. Or slice them actually, but that's about good. And I don't want them to be this full julienne here, so I'm going to take and cut them about 1/2 inch or so long. That's probably going to be enough on those. I have some water chestnuts here. Water chestnuts are one of my favorite Asian vegetables. They just have that great crisp crunch to them. So I'm going to slice these. And then I'm going to julienne these. So I'm going to take them after I make them into little planks like that. And just cut them into little sticks. And we're not making a ton of lo mein, so we don't need a ton of vegetables. I have some nice shiitake mushrooms here. So I'm going to use these. I rinse these off a little bit just to get off any of the growing material. I'm going to pop the stems off because the stems are kind of woody. These are excellent though. They have tons of flavor. So go ahead and throw these in a soup or throw them in a stock, something like that. Make a mushroom essence with them. All right, that's boiling like crazy. I'm going to wait a second because I'm not ready to drain those out. So we'll get another shiitake here. And I'm going to go through and just julienne these. And what else do we have here? We've got a red bell pepper, or yellow bell pepper, excuse me. So I'm going to cut the top and the bottom off of this. And then use my knife and cut right down through. And go like this and just cut out all the insides. Not cutting towards myself. Get rid of all this garbage. This is all totally usable pepper here too. I only need about this much of this, so I'm going to cut it half this way first. And there we go. So we've got carrots, onions, water chestnuts. We've got our shiitake mushrooms, some yellow bell pepper, and that's it. If we want, we can throw in a little bit of ginger. I like some ginger in there. So we'll get this back up to a boil. I'm gonna go ahead and drop our broccoli in. We're gonna let this cook just for about a minute. Drain it out. I'm gonna get all organized, and when we come back, we'll go ahead and make our beef and broccoli, and we'll make our lo mein right at the same time. All right, welcome back. We're ready to do what we came here to do, which is cook this food. So what I'm gonna do real quick is add a little bit of vegetable oil to 2 pans. We're gonna do our lo mein and our beef and broccoli at the same time. Just wanna get enough to cover the bottom of the pan. You want your pan relatively hot. You can't go too crazy hot unless you have a hood above you, because you don't wanna smoke the place out. But I'm gonna put my beef right in that pan. The vegetable one, I'm going to turn the heat up a bit on. And I'm going to go ahead and add my vegetables right to this. Because we cut them all the same size, it doesn't really matter what order we put them in. About like so. We'll stir our beef a bit. So I'm always a little gun shy now when I'm making lo mein or stuff like this, because when Wicked Good Food, the cookbook, first came out, I spent a lot of time going and trying to sell books. And so I would go to libraries and things and do cooking demos. I was at the library in Chatham, and I made lo mein very similar to this. Yep, set off the smoke alarm. They had to evacuate the entire library. All these little old ladies from the book club upstairs had to go outside. It's relatively embarrassing. But if you have a hood, crank it up. If you've ever been in a Chinese restaurant, you see how intense the heat is that's coming under. Both of these dishes would almost be done at this point. Looking great. Now, while we're going, I'm going to actually drop some of my dumplings into this boiling salted water, because this is going to be a 2-step cooking process, where we're going to boil them first, and then we're going to put them in a pan with some oil and get a little bit of color on them. Just like so. Our beef is essentially cooked, so I'm going to add our broccoli right to this. Yeah, that looks like enough broccoli. Then I'm going to add this, which is oyster sauce, which is an Asian sauce. You can find it in most supermarkets now. And literally, this is it. I'm going to toss it to coat. I'm going to turn off the heat on this guy. Beef and broccoli is done. Now, I'm not worried about cross-contamination here. We don't have any vegetarians among us. So I'm going to go ahead and stir this a bit. I'm going to put in my noodles right into my vegetables. Now there should be a little bit of oil left in here. I could probably use a little bit more just to brown the noodles, just a little bit, so they get a little bit toasty. And what I have here is a mixture of soy sauce with just a little bit of molasses. That's perfect. Pour that in. And this is what's going to give our lo mein noodles their color. And this will help to deglaze anything that's stuck on the bottom of the pan and give it a little bit of color to our noodles. You just want to go another 30 seconds or so until those have dried up a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this guy off. Then coming over here to these dumplings. They're looking good, not quite done. We're going to let them just come back. They should be floating, and then they're done. So what I'm going to do is let these cook another minute. We'll pull them out. We'll get all the stuff plated up. When Arthur comes back, we'll have these all browned in some hot oil, and we'll see what he thinks. Hey, Arthur.
Hi, Matt. Welcome to Dots on Appliance.
Thanks again for having me. It's always a pleasure. You know, it's a lot of fun to cook on this. We did a couple different things with the induction today.
Okay.
We cooked all these things at once, actually. We did all our prep beforehand, and we had our little dumplings going, we had our lo mein going, and beef and broccoli. So those are the 3 things we made. Kind of an Asian-inspired beef and broccoli.
All right.
Some relatively inexpensive beef, but we sliced it real thin, and we cooked it quickly, made a quick little sauce. We have our lo mein, just a vegetable lo mein, 5 or 6 different vegetables in there, but you could easily add chicken. You could add anything you wanted at home. Some shrimp would be nice. Then we made these, they're pot stickers, or Peking ravioli, as they call them around here.
Yep.
I cut some of these in half so it would be a little easier for us to eat. So these were all steamed, and then some of them we took and we just seared in a pan to get a little bit of color on them. And then made a very quick dipping sauce. And this dipping sauce is a little soy sauce, a little molasses, a little ginger, and a little rice vinegar. So what do you want to try first?
Let's dig in. Let's try the Peking
All
ravioli.
right. Good choice, I hope.
Now what's it filled with?
Pork.
Oh,
Pork and cabbage, a little bit of ginger, a little bit of garlic, and some seasonings.
very good.
Good.
Very good. I want to try this.
All right.
Now this is the
Beef and
beef
broccoli.
and broccoli. Very tender.
It is, and it's such a quick dish. It's just one sauce that I used in this one. And it's just a prepackaged sauce called oyster sauce. And it's quick and easy.
We're going to try this.
Indeed. I should have cut these so we don't have to look foolish on TV.
Yeah, I know, but hey.
And there's our vegetable lo mein.
Oh, that's very good.
What do you think?
Now that's
Wicked good. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this most recent episode of Wicked Good Food. We hope you enjoy watching it as much as we enjoy making it. We've been working really hard to try to make the show better, and I think we're improving as we go along. We have lots and lots of ideas for new shows in the future, but one of them we'd really like your help with. We'd love to do a show built totally around viewer questions or viewer ideas. So, if you have any questions or ideas or stuff you'd like to see on the show, please share it with us. There are a few different ways you can go about doing that. You can send an email directly to me at matt@wickedgoodcookbook.com. You can send an email to Donna, who's at Hudson Appliance, and she's the one that helps put this whole thing on, and that's donna@hudsonappliance.com. Or you can leave a message or just check us out on Facebook on the Wicked Good Food page. You can find us on Facebook. Once again, whether this was your first episode you've ever watched or you're a faithful viewer, we appreciate your support. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully you can help us out with this project we're hoping to do. Thank you very much. And from my kitchen to yours, have a great day.